I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Welcome to Amazing FBA. Today's show is brought to you by Escape the Rat Race, run by Christian Rodwell. Escape the Rat Race is there to do one job, help people escape the day job and create financial freedom for themselves. I'm going to be collaborating with Christian to run physical training in London, England on the 21st of April. So that's what I'm talking about now. If you can't make it to those things, the location or date, just spool forward and listen to the rest of the show. If you think you might be able to make that, listen up, because we are doing in-person training in a very small group, maximum 6 people. We've already sold 4 places. And the purpose is that is very, very simple, to make sure you get over the biggest roadblock, which is getting something selling online, on Amazon, I should say, and then basically deciding which product you're going to be able to private label. That's the purpose of the day. Very, very powerful, very simple. You're going to be focused because it's in person. You're not going to be distracted in the online environment or your office or whatever other place you might work on a business. Plus, you'll be free to discuss things absolutely openly because we'll all sign a non-disclosure agreement, and it's a small group, not a massive Facebook group. You're going to get also an amazing deal this time round, and this time round only, which is ongoing support in the form of 3 months of free membership of the Zero to Hero Mastermind, which meets once a month, mostly Saturdays as well, in London. So you need to be able to get to London, of course, to make this work for you. Plus 90 minutes of online mentoring or in-person mentoring with me personally. So you don't need to get it to London for that. So it's a very powerful package. I believe that this is going to be the most powerful way to move you forward out there, simply because offline is way more focused than online, and the hand-holding and the ongoing implementation support is really what makes the difference. So if you want to check that out, go to amazingfba.com/workshop. If the thing is already sold out, don't panic, because we will have an email sign up there and we'll keep you posted. If you are interested in future training, we're definitely going to be running it again because there is a need out there. Thanks so much for listening. Now on with the show.
Hi there and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Michael Veazey. Today, I want to share some of the realities of selling on Amazon. This is part 1 about the journey. How does it feel? What's your experience going to be like? First thing to say is that there's some downsides, and I want to be clear about those and honest. So here's 10 downsides to selling on Amazon. Number 1, it takes longer than most people say it will to launch a private label product. Sure, in theory, if you're selling in the US or the UK, you're super quick with your research and you get it ordered, you could have something selling as quickly as a month. And I've known maybe one person ever do that with a supplement that can be done or anything else you can source there. In practice, it's not advisable to rush into that. You're spending a lot of money, and also for most people, you're going to be sourcing from China, which means back and forth. The samples take a week to get sent over here, and the manufacturing times are longer. The unit numbers are bigger, etc. So in practice, working around a day job is going to potentially take you 6 to 9 months. That's okay, because you don't have to just start with private labeling. More on that later. Number 2, it takes more time than most people say. If you're trying to work this in 5 or 10 hours a week, it could be done in theory, but that will drag on for a while. I would suggest you want to be looking at least 10 to 15 hours a week. That's only really a couple of hours a day, but it does mean that you have to have your day job plus family life plus this as your main side project. If you're also juggling a bunch of other things and starting off several businesses at the same time, I don't think that's going to work very well. Number 3, it often takes more money than people say as well. Yes, you could start with £3,000. That's the absolute minimum I recommend. I'd suggest you start with at least 5,000 really. And if you're not in a position to do that yet, that's okay. You don't need to do private label. There are various ways on Amazon you can make money without any capital to speak of, and not much, with retail arbitrage. In other words, you buy stuff from Tesco's and you sell it on Amazon or wherever it is. Don't personally do much of that, but I know people who've done good money. And then there's merch by Amazon, which in theory you can start with absolutely nothing. Private label is, however, where I've seen the serious money being made in Amazon. So it's worth it, but it can take you more money than you think. Number 4, your first product may not take off. It's a reality that, the first time out, you don't necessarily quite know what you're doing. That's okay, as long as you have plenty of money in the bank and you don't spend it all on your first product. I think it's inadvisable to do that anyway. Number 5, the biggest markets aren't always the best. People get very excited about the high revenue numbers they see, especially in the USA. The truth is, though, that if you've got a market where everyone's selling $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month or something per listing or per product line, That's great, but you may need to have 20, 30, 40, or even $50,000 yourself to really launch into and compete and get a piece of that market. It's true that on page 2, you might have some great things selling there. You might be able to make $10, $20, $30,000 selling on page 2, and that might be more possible with less money. But in general, the more high selling markets do require a bit more capital to get moving with them. So that's fine. Just don't get overexcited just by sales numbers alone. The other reality, Seller Central. Let's talk about Seller Central. Now, anyone who's listening or watching who has been selling on Amazon for a while will know the truth of this, that Amazon Seller Central will sometimes take a week to sort things out with several back and forth emails or phone calls to people who don't know what's going on to sort out something that, in theory, with an intelligent person should take 5 minutes. And that's just a reality we have to deal with if we want to sell on this wonderful platform. Number 7, Seller Central representatives often seem to know less than you do. Right, and that is just because that's true. They know less than you do. There's some minimum wage guy in Philippines or minimum wage girl in India, and they don't particularly know what's going on. If it's not on a sort of SOPs list or standard operating procedures list, they won't necessarily know what's going on. That's okay, but you need to take that into account, and there are other ways of doing it. The best way, of course, is to talk to people who know what they're talking about, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. There are many upsides, right? Let's just get the downsides out of the way. Number 8, Seller Central reps will often contradict each other as well, which is not great, but they are often inconsistent. And inconsistency is a thing you're going to experience from Amazon internally. It's not a sort of knitted together company. It's got an internal culture of people competing with each other for resources, and it's not particularly consistent. That's okay. You just need to, again, talk to people who know what they're talking about. Again, the solution to that in a minute. Number 9, sharing ignorance with random people on a huge Facebook group is not the way to go. It's kind of obvious, but really there is a lot of myths and rumor knocking around with Amazon because it keeps a lot of its information close to its chest. And that's fine, but you need to sort of figure it out together with other people. But you should figure it out together with other people who are actually selling, not people who are talking about stuff but not selling, because they aren't really going to be able to help you. Proviso with that, I mean, if they are on the journey of selling and they've done a lot of research and they've got halfway there, they might have some things to share. But a random big Facebook group is not the way to do it, in my opinion, and also my experience. Number 10, very importantly, you can't market your way out of a poor niche product selection. So in other words, if you choose to sell baby wipes or something, you're in competition with Pampers or Huggies or something in America, some very, very big brand names that dominate the market. You are not going to be able to market your way out of it with good brand pictures and great bullet points and things like that, and PPC, i.e., advertising spend on Amazon ads, because basically the market is totally dominated by those guys. They have incredible scale, they have an incredible brand, and they have, because of their scale, they have very, very low unit costs. So they will beat you on money every time. So that is not the way to go either. So having talked about the downsides, let's talk about the upsides, and there are many. The first thing to say is it's quicker to get selling on Amazon than many people say. Now, I'm not talking about private labeling, which is normally slower than people say, but there are a couple of halfway houses, one of which is just get selling stuff straight away from your house. Just literally pick up some objects and scan them into the Amazon Seller app using your trusty iPhone or Android or whatever, and get some stuff selling, because you'll learn a lot about how to list products. If you sell it FBA, that is fulfilled by Amazon, you'll need to ship it into Amazon warehouses, and you'll learn how to ship stuff in as well. That will teach you a hell of a lot of stuff that you need to know before you get all the stress of putting all the money into a private label product when the pressure is on a bit more. Number 2, borrowing a bit of customer service. It really is passive once you have stock in the Amazon warehouses. That's assuming you're selling only a few products. If you have, tens or hundreds of product lines, it gets a bit more active managing the stock and managing your cash flow. But really, when you're first starting out, it is pretty passive. Looking at the Amazon Seller app is addictive. I've ended up looking at that multiple times a day, and it really is quite addictive. You see people in Amazon Seller meetings doing that as well. Number 4, nothing beats selling 100 units in a day of a product. I've experienced that a few times, and it's a fantastic feeling because I've done nothing. Talk about passive. If you've got it with Amazon and you're selling FBA, fulfilled by Amazon, if you do fulfilled by merchant, FBM, then you're going to find it's obviously a lot of hard work. I don't suggest for that reason that you personally do that from home once you're starting out. Just send it into Amazon. And if you want to scale up, you need to use a warehouse, but I wouldn't personally do that. That sounds like the bad old eBay model where you're down the post office every 5 minutes. I personally don't do that at all. Number 5, you'll be joining a community of fellow online nerds. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be part of a community of people who are getting quite precise about numbers and online trends, and generally in a sort of world that most people don't know exists. And that's good because most people don't know the tidal wave that is coming towards them, which is called online everything. Everything's going online, and that includes retail. And of course, we are still at the front of that trend. Remember, Amazon probably feels like oldish news to you. I don't know how long you've been hearing about it, but for a lot of people listening to the podcast or watching the videos, reading the blog, it's new stuff. But it's not that new. For the general public, most people don't even buy online, which is kind of insane. I can't quite get my head around it because I've been selling on Amazon. So I've been buying stuff on Amazon for, I don't know how many years, about 10. And I've just think of that as part of life. But my mum bought her first thing on Amazon about just 3-4 months ago at Christmas. And that was the first time in her life. She's in her 70s, so maybe that's more typical of that generation. Honestly, even as a shopper, most people aren't familiar with online. It sounds an amazing thing to say, but it's still new, and we're at the front of that trend. Number 6, masterminds of people who actually sell stuff on Amazon are your best source of information, period. Right? Facebook groups of people who don't sell stuff are just reflecting the stuff going around the Amazon bubble, as Will Chernan calls it famously, the Amazon echo chamber, banging around. And what happens is you get a rumor and then it gets talked about 100 times. What you need to do is talk to people who are actually selling because they have actual real life experience and data to pull on. And the second best place to do it is to be in a mastermind with people, many of whom are not yet selling, but at least they are looking into things in detail. And you have preferably a person leading the mastermind who is actually selling on Amazon and has been doing for some time, so they can bring some reality checks to bear. Number 7, 98.2% of Amazon accounts opened in 2016 were either closed or dormant by the end of the year. Now, what does that tell you? Does it tell you that Amazon selling is hard? I don't think so. I think it tells you that most people are pitched into stuff. They have unrealistic expectations and they just quit very easily. I think that's great if you're in the 1.8% that's left at the end of the year, because that means most of the so-called competition disappears overnight. Number 8, not counting the gurus I've interviewed, and I've interviewed over 37 people so far. I personally know about 30 Amazon sellers who are doing over $100,000 or pounds a year in revenue, and most of them at a nice profit margin as well. So that means this thing is real. I mean, yes, the percentages may not be high. Maybe that's because 98.2% of people quit within a year. So just don't be one of those and you're already ahead of the game. Number 9, the 10K Collective members, that's my mastermind for people who are doing at least $10,000 a month online, are all individually selling at least £100,000 worth of stuff a year, all on Amazon. Many of them are doing much, much more. The highest earner is working within a company, to be fair, but he's doing probably around the £400,000 to £500,000 a month mark. And there are quite a few people who are just individuals who started up their own business doing 30, 40, 50, 60,000 pounds a month. Number 10, added together, the 10K Collective members should sell over 10 million pounds this year on Amazon. And that's a very conservative figure. That's just taking their current turnover. Bearing in mind that I'm recording this in April, so in Q4, just before Christmas, things normally go nuts. It very often turnover will double. And there are quite a few members who are aggressively increasing their sales quite consciously. One person is targeting 12 million pounds turnover this year for his company alone. And that's very probable that he'll achieve that, because apart from the growth curve he's had, which is epic, from 30,000 to 300,000, 400,000 a month over the last few months, he's also got some decent funding behind him as well. So folks, It's all to play for. There are some downsides, and I want to be real about those because I don't want those to put you off the fact that the road is a bit bumpy. Welcome to life and welcome to entrepreneurship. If you want a smooth ride, you need to get yourself an education from Harvard or an Ivy League school or Oxford or Cambridge in the UK and get yourself a job as a lawyer in a top law firm. Oh, hang on a second. You already need to have done that decades ago. It will have cost you $200,000 or something to get an education in Harvard. And also you will have had absolutely bumpy ride because the corporate world is not smooth anyway. You'll have been working 16, 20 hours a day and not seeing your family for that matter. So what I'm saying is there ain't no such thing as a non-bumpy ride in life, not if it's a real achievement. But look at the upsides, folks. I mean, people who started a year ago in the 10K Collective, they started selling on Amazon a year ago, and they're already doing tens of thousands a month in profitable sales. I'm not saying this is typical. It isn't typical because most people quit, are unfocused, or don't put enough money or time in. So just don't be one of those, and you're already ahead of the game. I don't know how to put this strongly enough. Number one, the opportunity is still huge. Number two, you need to be serious about it or you shouldn't be entering the arena. And I think that's true of all business. It doesn't matter whether you get into property now and you invest in Eastern Europe and you got to deal with this sort of political risk and the fact that governments are changing and getting more right wing, and who knows when there's going to be a backlash against foreign investors. For example, another example from the property investing world, I mean, the early 2000s, I'm just looking at the alternatives you might have to Amazon and thinking about putting it in context properly. If you look in the early 2000s in Spain, near Marbella or Marbella, however you say it, there were people from Britain investing in property there, doing very, very nicely, renting it out, a nice rental yield. And overnight, the local government decided to put up their property taxes by 2,000% overnight. So overnight, those properties, which have been beautiful, profitable little business entities, went from profit to a massive loss. That's a reality of investing in property, for example. Yeah, if you want to play the stock markets or the Forex, the foreign exchange markets, let's take, for example, I know somebody who made £20,000 overnight and who's related to my property manager, funnily enough. I do own some property I rent out, and that's gone through its ups and downs, but I'm glad I did it. It's been really worthwhile overall, but I've had some bumps in the road. Welcome to life, as I say. And this guy's cousin, I believe, made £20,000 overnight by calling the Brexit effect on the pound correctly. So the pound went from $1.48 the day before Brexit to about $1.32, 33, whatever it was the next day. Now, the Brexit vote was really on a knife edge, and it happened to go that guy's way. If it had gone the other way, which nobody called correctly in advance, really, then he could have lost 20,000 quite easily, or at least lost some. No? So that's Forex, that's foreign exchange trading. Now, doubtless there are strategies for risk reduction with property and with Forex or with stock market investing, as there are with Amazon, of course. And that is partly why you should seek out a good coach, a good community, and get a course. I think the 3 C's will help you to do better with any business investment. But I want to be clear, there are bumps in the road, and that's because the prize is big. So therefore, other people want a piece of it. Be prepared to get in there and fight and be a little bit tough. And if you don't think that's you, that's okay. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone should be an entrepreneur. Don't feel like you should be. It's a possibility right now if you're just still exploring it. But if you're serious about this, get in there and take a piece of this. That's what I would say to you. If you're really needing to quit the day job, if you're basically unemployable, as I was, because you just hate having a boss and you really don't like being in a job where the ceiling is capped by somebody else's decision, not by your ability to add value to a marketplace, then get in there, folks, and make hay while the sun shines. The opportunity is still here. I don't know if it's going to be here forever. So now is still the time to get into Amazon if it's the right game for you. Thanks for listening.